What's interesting about Cowboys and Aliens is I've always been a fan of the Western, and I love science fiction. I love science fiction. I've worked in science fiction. You don't really get to work in the Western because there's just not a market for it, especially around the world. The minute it turns into Cowboys and Aliens, you now have an in. You now have a point of departure that makes the film accessible, and it becomes an alien invasion film. So you have this great palette of characters to draw from and imagery, but it's also updated and made a little bit fresher and more compelling by the fact that you are now creating an effects show around the sleepy backdrop of a Western. Daniel Craig, for me, that was the first cast member we brought on. He's a very intelligent, talented actor who people know because of James Bond. And the choice to go with somebody who wasn't American to play our main cowboy in Cowboys and Aliens was informed somewhat by me talking to him and looking at him and realizing that there's a certain gruff, handsome quality to him that if you look at him closely, there's a Steve McQueen type quality there. The producers, and you got Steven Spielberg and Ron Howard, and Harrison Ford found himself at a point in his life when this was an interesting subject matter and an interesting role for him to take on. And I met with him and spoke to him and sat down about his body of work, what he has done in the past, what he wants to do now, and how to use the iconography of who he is. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, for my generation, he's like John Wayne. You cast him in a movie, you're not just casting him, but there's an entire body of work that came before. In Cowboys and Aliens, we're trying to do something completely different. And I think certainly in a summer that's going to be really the only movies that people are making less movies now. And if you look at the summer schedule, it's a crowded marketplace. And if you look at what's out there, everything's either a sequel or an extension of, or a reboot of, or because people want to trade upon familiarity because they know that there's money there. And so they're continuing sagas of people that we've seen, and there's not a lot of surprises. You got to go bigger and better. Working with Steven Spielberg, it's been great to just be able to pick his brain and say, how did you do this? How did you do that? How would you do it now? How do you use today's technology to present the imagery and the feeling that I felt so strongly when I saw Close Encounters, And those lights on the horizon coming up, and the horses shaking and bucking, and the dogs barking, and the wind blowing, and the signs swinging, right? There's this ineffable supernatural force that appears. And and Steven's the master of that.